your Bible study evangelista, coming to you live from Space Camp in Huntsville, Alabama. I'm here at a hotel with my son who is attending Space Camp for this week. So that's the cool digs here. So we are talking today about conversion. We're talking about the fallout that can happen when you experience a conversion, whether it's from non-denominationalism or denominationalism to Catholicism, or if it's something entirely different. It could be lots of things. You could have a political conversion. You could have a religious conversion. You could just suddenly your faith could actually take on a real depth that it hadn't before. For instance, possibly you never spent time with God before, and suddenly you've begun to do so, and your life is changing. So you're undergoing a conversion. One of the things that I love about Catholicism is the theology of ongoing conversion. So it's not a one-time, salvation is not a one-time thing. It's not an event in your life where you say this prayer and you get saved, which actually the Bible doesn't speak about salvation that way either. The actual Greek verbs, all verbs in Greek have motion, which just means they have ongoing action. So I was saved, I am being saved, I will be saved. And so the Bible talks about salvation in a process kind of way, and so does Catholicism. So it's not a prayer you pray one time and then suddenly from that point on you can't ever lose your salvation. And I've always hated that term anyway. It's almost like, whoops, I dropped it, and it's not that way at all. But we can, because God gives us free will, we can forfeit it. So the Bible talks about that. So my point in all of that is just to say that conversion is an ongoing process. And so when we have a major life conversion, it always rattles the people around us. And partly, first of all, the main thing to remember in any sort of conversion, especially a monumental, foundational conversion of any sort, is just don't take it personally. They don't understand your process. They don't know where your head has been. For me, I hid it for a long time. I was doing research, I was reading, I was exploring the church, the doctrines of the church, because I had experienced a couple of church splits, and they were so devastating foundationally for me. I knew that the Bible made a better provision for both God's people and also for his pastors. And so I did some exploration. I went all the way back to the original Reformation, and I wanted to take a look at Martin Luther and King Henry VIII and what caused that upheaval. And so in any case, my point is, it's not personal. People don't know where you've been. They don't know all of the reading you've done or the thought process that you've been through. So what I'm going to do in the minutes that we have, I'm going to try to keep it really strictly to 15 minutes just because I don't want to take up all your day. But we're going to start kind of in the center. So your closest relationships first. And for me, that was my relationship with my husband. And as I said, I hid it even from him. I mean, it was embarrassing, to be perfectly honest. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know if it was going to turn out to be something. So I didn't want to tell anybody, because partly I didn't want to lose my friends. I didn't want to lose my fledgling ministry. There were lots of things that I had to lose, and I did not want people to know. So I didn't tell him. I didn't tell anybody. I did all my reading. I read all the time. I'm a voracious reader. So my husband didn't think anything was weird about that. And I had a catechism, but, I didn't flash it around to anybody. So I did all of my research pretty much in secret. So when I did, however, realize that, oh my gosh, I'm really going to have to do this, especially when I started to try to go to Mass. I had to explain what I was doing, and so I did, and it was a lot. There was a lot of tension. Our marriage was so tense. It was very difficult. He didn't understand what I was doing. I didn't know how to explain it. So just be prepared for that. Not just with your closest relationships, but with all of them. They don't know where you've been, but don't take it personally. It's not personal. They love you and they're worried about you. So they don't want you to make a mistake. They don't want you to do something that's going to affect them in a negative way. So don't take it personally. In fact, that's a really good rule for most everything. Just don't take it personally. Unless they come to you personally and they make it personal, just don't take it personally. So I tried very hard not to do that. One of the things that helped me a lot with my relationship with my husband and the tension that we experienced together through probably about a year. It took about a year for me to get through the whole process, and I was going to Mass, and he knew I was going to Mass, but oh my gosh, I think he probably hated it. Do you know, we still to this day haven't really talked about any of that. And now he's Catholic. I mean, it took about 5 years for that to happen too. And I'm sort of all over the place, and I don't mean to be, but that relationship was the hardest because it is the closest. And, you know, I love him and I respect him, and I wanted him to respect my search. And he did. I mean, I have to say this for him. I think a lot of people that knew us expected and wanted him to stop me. I think they wanted him to intervene and to say, you can't do this. And in fact, I know that that's the case because I know he experienced a lot of, I'll say mild persecution from the people that he worked with and the people he worked for, and also people that we knew who were non-Catholic, very close friends of ours. And I think he was under a lot of pressure to stop me or to at least intervene and try to stop me. And I have to say, I respected him so much because he didn't do that. Now, I knew he wasn't happy about it. I knew he was scared. I mean, he never said that, but I knew he was. But he never tried to prevent me from doing what I was doing. And looking back on that, I think that was probably the wisest thing that he's ever done in our whole marriage. Partly because the church is the best gift I think I've ever been given by God, aside from my family. So that he respected me and my relationship with God so much that he would give me the room to try to figure it out. To this day, it's very humbling. So I'm thankful for that. Now, I don't know his point of view. You'd have to ask him, and I'm sorry. But that was the hardest. The hardest part was my relationship with him. And then, of course, one of the questions Cassie Ann asked, how did your kids handle the conversion? And that's interesting because at the time when I came in to the church at Easter Vigil, I was pregnant with my youngest son, who is now 10. So he didn't really have a choice. But my oldest at the time, he was 9 or 10. And it was interesting because we homeschooled at that time. And between the time I came into full communion with the church at Easter Vigil and the time that he actually came in, he sat across from me doing his schoolwork. We homeschool, as I said, and he always does his schoolwork at the kitchen table. And so he was sitting across from me, and he said, "Mama, God just said something to me." And he's 8 or 9, and I said, "Really? What did God say?" And he said, "God told me I needed to be baptized." And I said, "You know what? That is something that God would say to you. So where do you want to be baptized? Do you want to be baptized at our Baptist church, or do you want to be baptized at the Catholic church?" Because at that time I was Catholic, and he attended with me some, not always, but some. And I was actually doing both. I was going to the Catholic church on Saturday vigil masses in the evenings, and then I would go to the Baptist church with my husband. We were going to an enormous Baptist church at that time, just because we were trying to hide and heal from all of the division and stuff that we'd experienced. But I was doing both, so I gave him that choice, and it's interesting because I think he chose to do it at the Catholic church because we didn't have an immersion baptistry there. It's a baptismal font. It's a fount, and he didn't like the idea, first of all, of being in front of all the people and being completely dunked. So in his mind, he was taking the easy way out. So he said he wanted to be baptized at the Catholic Church with our pastor at the time. And I told him, I said, okay, well, you need to tell your father, because our relationship at that time, as I've already shared, was very tense. I didn't want my husband to feel like I was pressuring my son to do anything, because I hadn't. I totally took my hands completely off of all of that. I just focused on what I was doing, what I was learning. I tried very hard to make it as easy as possible by going to church with them, by keeping our Sunday routine intact, because I always cooked a big Sunday dinner. I still do that. And I tried to keep all of that as normal as possible. So I did everything I was doing and tried to stay out of everybody else's way. So when my son came to me and said that he wanted to be baptized, I gave him that choice, and he made that choice. And I was afraid that my husband would feel like I had pressured him, but I didn't. He came to me and I left it to him. He made the choice, and I said, you're going to have to go tell your father, because I didn't want to get in the middle of that. And so he did. And my husband, when my son came in to full communion with the church, it was in November of the same year that I came in, and he was baptized and received his well, I can't remember. He did. He received both confirmation and his first Eucharist and baptism all at the same time. And at that time, I had my youngest son. I had already had my second child, and he was about 2 months old. So I had him baptized as well. So I call that a twofer. I had them both baptized. So all three of us were Catholic, and at that time my husband wasn't. So understandably, he felt like I had divided our family, which was very, very difficult for me, because I hate that feeling of division, but I hoped and prayed that it would be temporary. So it was one of those things where three of us were Catholic, and my husband wasn't. And it was, I can't even imagine all of the conversations and the thoughts that people had that knew us regarding our situation and what I had done. I know for sure that my husband was accused of having an Eve who was sending her whole family to hell. I know that happened, although he didn't tell me. I also know that he experienced a lot of as I say, mild persecution with the people that he worked with. And that's also understandable, because people didn't know our situation, and honestly, it was none of their business. But people are concerned, and probably if they love you, they are going to express some concern. So as I said, you can't take it personally. You have to be able to explain it as best you can, and then just let the chips fall where they may. And that's what I did. What I also experienced was a very intense attraction, I'll say, to Mary and Joseph, because I related very strongly to Mary's yes, where the angel came to her and presented the truth, the word, and she received it, she accepted it, she acknowledged it, she went with it. Without Joseph's approval, without Joseph's knowledge. Now, she was quiet, it seems. Now, we don't know exactly what happened between the two of them, but reading between the lines through my own situation, I felt like the best thing for me to do was nothing. I just needed to be quiet and absorb the fallout myself. Now, everybody's not going to be able to do that, and honestly, I can just say I don't know how I was able to do it. It was obviously grace. It was very, very difficult. That time of my life was the most difficult I have ever experienced for so many reasons. It wasn't just my marriage and my friends and my denomination and my own upheaval. I mean, it was such a difficult process just for me, not even counting everybody else around me. It was the most difficult period of my entire life. And because of that, I suffered a lot. I suffered a lot, and not, I hate to use the word persecution because, you know, in the West we're not really persecuted, but it was so very difficult. So my encouragement then is, if you're experiencing some sort of conversion, whether it's political or religious or whatever it is, whatever you're going through, but specifically religious conversions, and especially if you're coming into the Catholic Church in the South, prepare to suffer. But it's temporary. It's part of the purification process. It's going to refine your faith. It's going to cause you to find the answers, because people are going to ask you questions, and you need to know why. You need to know why you're doing what you're doing. You need to be able to explain it in a way that is attractive and even inspiring to other people, because they really want to know. If they love you, they want to know, and they are curious, and they're concerned. So understand that that's where the questions come from. It's not a place of, although sometimes it can be a place of just flat out conflict. You know, they are challenged by your process. Sometimes they experience that conflict as a personal attack, which it's not, but a lot of times people take it that way. But just don't take it personally. It's not personal. That really is probably my overarching advice, if I have any. And I can't believe that already that is 15 minutes. So I hope, Candace and Cassie, I answered your questions. Next week, we're going to talk about penance. So next week, penance. Thank you for joining me. I am Sonia Corbett, your Bible study evangelista on Facebook Live.